What do you do when overnight a global pandemic plunges the organization you lead into uncertainty? Welcome to The Pivot. Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Pivot. I'm your host, Jen Devor, Civic Impact Manager at the Economy League of Greater Philadelphia. Today is our 23rd episode of The Pivot, and it's a little bittersweet because today is the last episode, the season finale of The Pivot. So we've had a really great run for this time, and we're excited to talk about what's going to be next for the show and for the organization. So I'm really excited to bring on our guests today, my colleagues and co-producers of The Pivot, Nick Frontino, Managing Director of the Economy League of Greater Philadelphia, and Brianna Love, who's the Civic Impact Intern, also at the Economy League for the summer. So guys, if you want to turn on your camera.
Hello, Jen.
Hi. Oh, so this is it, huh? The final season finale.
Yeah, super excited.
What a whirlwind.
Yeah. So we've been doing this now since like late March, early April, since really this kind of, since COVID really hit the US and we shut down our offices. Nick, maybe this is good. I know because a lot of our viewers have been watching from home and you were our first guest, so it's very appropriate to have you on today. Do you want to just talk a little bit about where the pivot came from and how we got to be here today?
Sure. Well, beyond it coming from deep inside the creative genius of Jen Devor, it was born out of this kind of this crisis or disruption in the world, right? We had planned to be running or launching a big program as part of our Impact Labs initiative in March or April, and that got delayed as a result of COVID. We've talked about Impact Labs as a new line of programming for the Economy League, where we're really out in the community looking to surface and support community-led solutions to complex civic challenges. That's what our Full City Challenge was about last year. That's what our forthcoming Well City Challenge in partnership with Independence Blue Cross will be about. But obviously hard to be out in the community during a global pandemic. So, the spirit of Impact Labs is about finding ways to support social entrepreneurs and community ventures that are focused on social impact. And so you had this amazing idea to use Zoom and the virtual tools to help create this platform for social entrepreneurs, civic leaders to share what they're going through as they're trying to, keep their organizations and initiatives afloat during this pandemic and how they're pivoting. So, very much in the spirit of what we're trying to do with Impact Labs around creating resources for civic innovators. And, I know that I've certainly learned a lot listening to folks, and it's just a testament to your enthusiasm and your network. That you've had such a great diversity of people on the show and perspectives, and really also a testament to just how rich Philly's civic ecosystem is. So it's been amazing. I mean, I don't know how many weeks it's been off the top of my head, but 23 episodes in that short span might get you some real cred in Hollywood in terms of production. Right?
No, yeah, I mean, I think it's been 12 weeks probably. Thinking about, from when we started, and it is in such the true spirit of the Economy League. Something that we love to do is convene and connect people, and Philadelphia is such a social city and under normal circumstances. And so I think my hope for the pivot is that when people were watching it, they were able to feel like they were reconnecting with their own colleagues, with the people in their network, with organizations that they love and admire. I think, I miss walking into a networking event and asking people what they're up to and what are they working on and how are they, handling different situations. And so I'm hoping that this show was able to provide that for our viewers at home. And then Brianna, you jumped in, with a virtual internship, something that was, of course, also not planned. Did you ever think that you were going to be a talk show host producer in the middle of a pandemic?
Not in a million years did I expect to be a talk show producer, especially in a pandemic. But with that being said, I love that we're highlighting like different organizations and how they've pivoted in response to the pandemic. and just like hearing how they've done it, I think it's kind of inspired me as well as other organizations to see what they can do to really serve their community and just uplift everyone during this time. So
that's great. Yeah, and you were such a huge asset with editing and going through and pulling out all the great quotes. You did a lot of our social media marketing. Like, is there anything from that was new to you or interesting, or something that you think you can share to our viewers today about promoting video content, especially in a time like now when there's a lot of noise online and competing elements?
Right. So I definitely had to learn how to use different softwares, and then also editing. I also had to really my listening skills had to go up because I had to listen to the very things that they were saying. And then I had to learn how each social media platform works, because everyone has a different purpose. Some you post like certain pictures or certain content. So just really focusing on what is appropriate for each social media platform. I think that was a big thing. And then also just playing around with my creativity and learning all the different editing software just to make sure that we put out the best content possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as a rising senior at Temple University, right? These are new skills that you now have, and you did a great job with your own pivot. So
thank you.
So after watching the shows, and I'll kind of chime in too, but it's, being the interviewer, like sometimes I'm just so focused on asking the next question, trying to pick up on like the body language of the person I'm interviewing so I can guide the conversation. But from both of your perspectives, really like watching these and focusing on the content, like what do you think it takes to pivot? What is the secret sauce or the X factor that so many of our guests have, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's interesting because in some ways what we heard from folks kind of bore out what some of the principles or values that we've based Impact Labs on, right? Impact Labs is about trying to carve out more room for experimentation and risk-taking in the civic realm, trying to move faster and iterate and learn as you go. And I think in many respects, the pandemic has forced civic leaders to do that, right? And so this tolerance for experimentation and kind of enhanced risk tolerance is something that's really critical in times of crisis, right? But at the same time, you also really have to know what you're good at, right? Know your strengths, kind of know thyself, right? So that you can leverage that, right? I think that you saw a lot of the folks who participated in the show talk about simultaneously needing to kind of really focus on what their core mission and kind of core operations is, but think about delivering it in a different way. This isn't necessarily the time, unless you're super well positioned and sitting on a lot of resources, to go out and try something totally new outside the realm of what you do. It's about trying to do what you're already doing in new and different ways. And that's really kind of what we're all about when it comes to Impact Labs. There's the saying that trying something over and over again the same way and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. And I think that is something that applies to some pockets of the way we approach things, approach some of our bigger structural civic and social problems here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the word brave was used a lot. I think almost every guest in some way or another talked about being brave, which I think is different than taking a risk. And certainly, like, we talk about taking risks and the importance of risk taking to drive innovation, for sure. But this is all, I think being brave is also a little bit different, and it's stepping outside your comfort zone. That's one thing that I heard throughout almost all the interviews. Yeah, Brianna, what did you kind of take away from all of this after, besides hearing my voice for hours and hours and hours at a time?
I would definitely say that it takes real commitment and determination and leadership to pivot. Leadership was like a common theme amongst many of their interviewees. Just learning how to lead your community during this time can definitely be a struggle, but many of the organizations stepped out of their comfort zone and did what they had to provide. Specifically, I know Carla Trotman, who's the president and CEO of Electrosoft, she talked about how they went out of the box and they started creating face shields to provide for their frontline workers, which I thought was amazing. And they once they did that, they also inspired and led other companies to do the same thing. So that just shows how like involved everyone is, and how it just takes how much effort, how your little effort can help in the long run. So just hearing how they really stepped up and showed their care for their community. I really like that.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, everyone too, another commonality, everyone loves Philadelphia and everyone loves the community and the people that they served. And I think everyone that we talked to, I mean, one of the takeaways I had was like creativity comes from joy, and to love what you do and the people you do it with and that you do it for, then you do whatever it takes to stay on top and to stay afloat and to persevere. And everybody that we talk to just seemed to have such great love and joy for the work that they do. Yeah.
I mean, and that's super important because the stakes are really high, right? I mean, I think, you know, as we have the benefit of some time here, it's becoming pretty clear that COVID has thrown an accelerant onto what have been kind of smoldering fires of structural challenges around unemployment and wealth inequality, around structural racism. And there's a risk that, you know, well, I think one way or another, when we come out of this, we're going to have kind of fast forwarded to, you know, 10 years into the future when it comes to the adaptation of technology, you know, in a variety of sectors. And I think there's a real risk that there's going to be a lot of folks who are left behind, you know, as that kind of acceleration of trends happens. And so like that commitment and joy and passion is really critical to kind of keeping you on focus and on mission, you know, when things are really challenging, right? You know, our Greater Philadelphia Leadership Exchange director, Opiola Bukola, talks a lot about inclusive agility, right?
Yeah.
And this idea that, you know, inclusion and agility are two forces that are often kind of put in opposition to one another. So, you know, a pandemic may shine a light on the need for us to be agile in responding and pivoting, but that a lot of times makes it hard to be inclusive and make sure that you're bringing everyone along with the pivot, right? And policies that are focused on inclusion are oftentimes hard to change in short order. So, you know, what is it that we have to do to be able to kind of bring inclusion and agility along with one another? And I think that, you know, a lot of the folks that you spoke with are thinking about that and talking about that and actually pivoting to make sure it happens.
Yeah, and I think our viewers at home, at least from the feedback that we've received, are now, you know, thinking about that as well and are inspired from the stories of people that were able to do it. Because not everyone has to pivot to some degree right now, but I feel like we really captured and harnessed those that were able to pivot very quickly. And that's not everybody, you know, and you know, when we talked with Natalie Nixon on her book about the creativity leap, throughout her writing, she does talk about the importance of pausing and reflecting and assessing. And so while so many people are doing that, I think being able to provide a platform to tell stories of those that were able to do it quickly will just be a catalyst for more and more change to come. Any memorable moments that you want to share, or like, did you have a favorite? I mean, all of our guests are our favorite guests, right? But I know, like, I loved doing the Pivot Live with Michelle Histan at BPHL. That was just like a lot of fun and a lot of high energy. I also really appreciated talking to Malik Brown because him and I go back years from when I served on the board of Diversified Community Services and he worked there. So that was great, especially right when COVID hit and we're feeling, you know, we're at stay-in-home orders, we're feeling isolated. I mean, it was great to connect with just so many fun, interesting people to kind of escape a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there were so many great moments. I don't know if you guys have any favorites.
I would say a memorable moment that was kind of like an inspirational moment was hearing Natalie Nixon, the author of the Creativity Leap that you were just talking about. Yeah. She says that it's impossible to leap backwards. We can only leap forwards. Yeah. And that inspired me to like remain focused, always follow my dreams, and to even like keep my head up. And it's shown me that failure isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's like all part of the road to your success. So I think that that's really something that stuck with me. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I mean, there were so many great moments, right? The one that kind of really stands out is your interview with Julie Coker-Graham and
Yep.
Angela Val from the Convention and Visitors Bureau, PHLCDB. First, knowing that Julie, who had taken a job in another city, and was ready to leave, kind of put those plans on hold. I think she even kind of deferred her compensation for a while.
She did,
Yeah, so that she could make sure that things were in order in Philadelphia before she left. I mean, that is just an incredible commitment from an incredible leader. And then the kind of messaging around PHL, perseverance, hope, and love during pandemic times, is something that kind of gets you right here, right? Messaging oftentimes is just looked at kind of like the window dressing, right? And it's obviously the implementation and program delivery on the ground is really important. But I'll tell you, particularly in Philadelphia, where we have a bit of a tendency to be down on ourselves. Good, strong messaging about what this community and all of its constituent parts bring to the table and the positive side of things is just so important. And so I love to see our big kind of marketing organizations taking the lead there.
That was a great interview too. And like you said, I loved how they redefined PHL to perseverance, hope, and love. And I think that really, to your point, Nick, there's that old saying, right? Like Philadelphia is not as bad as Philadelphians say it is. But I think that's changing. We are all experiencing so many things together as a community. And I think, coming together and collaborating and supporting one another in this massive time of need that's very layered. It's a good reminder that this is a really wonderful city with a really great civic-minded community. And that's, what the pivot is all about is showcasing that and highlighting it. And so we are wrapping season 1. This will be the last episode for this run of the show. And we're going to take the summer to kind of reflect and reevaluate and make plans for what's next. But Nick, maybe you could talk a little bit about what's coming up on the horizon for the Economy League in general, and then specifically Impact Labs.
Sure. Yeah. So, we've been busy, as you guys well know. You've been pivoting. Our coworkers, colleagues have been pivoting. For Impact Labs in particular, we, are back on path to launch our Well City Challenge, which is the social impact incubator and accelerator that'll focus on millennial health and millennial mental health. Looking at an early fall launch. Of course, the program's going to look a little bit different than what we had initially planned. It'll be pretty much all virtual. But we're working with the folks at Independence Blue Cross to put on an amazing program that's going to identify and support community-led ventures for advancing solutions to millennial and millennial mental health in Philadelphia. And we know that, mental health challenges have really been amplified as a result of the pandemic and of the social unrest and the rise in awareness of structural racism and how it's embedded into all of our civic and social systems. So more folks are dealing with mental health challenges, and some folks are dealing with even more acute mental health challenges. And it's going to be important that there are community-led solutions to helping mitigate those. And we're, I think, fortunate to be in a position where we can work with the community to hopefully help advance some really impactful ones. So very excited about that, about getting that back on track. And then we're also pivoting our Greater Philadelphia Leadership Exchange to really focus on trying to advance solutions to some of the civic challenges that are coming out of the pandemic and put Philadelphia on a path to equitable recovery here. So that'll be happening in October and November, where we'll be doing kind of a condensed civic solutions boot camp with, probably about 100 folks, 120 folks who participate in our leadership exchange. And there'll be more details on that available within the next few weeks. And that's an application-based process where we'll be leveraging, the 1,000 plus alumni of our leadership exchange. So really excited on that front too.
That's great. And it's exciting work, and it's work that certainly, we have our work cut out for us for sure. And then Brianna, you're with us until the summer. And then what do you have in store for fall? You're going to be a senior at Temple, right?
Yes, it's my college experience has gone by entirely way too fast, but I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, I don't know if we're online or on campus, but I'm hoping things go well. I'm really looking forward to it.
That's awesome. Well, I'm just at I'm at a loss for words on how to end this fantastic season of the Pivot. This was an incredible, I'm going to call it a journey, right? Because as we know, and we talked about this throughout the Pivot, I started on February 10th. So I only had about 4 weeks into the office before we got sent home and schools closed. And, I often talk about, how challenging it's been for parents too, on the show and with our guests. And this has been just a great creative outlet for me personally. And I think it's been a great way to position the Economy League as a true platform for these shared solutions and for civic leadership across the region. So I just want to say thank you to both of you, Nick and Brianna, for being excellent producers and advocates for the show. And thank you to all of our guests. And we'll see you soon. We'll see you in the fall. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you,
Have
Jen.
a great episode. And I'm going to do my last final screen share. And there you go. You are watching The Pivot. You can watch this episode and more at economyleague.org/The Pivot. And you can follow us on all social media channels at Economy League. We're going to be airing all 23 episodes throughout the summer. So if you missed one, you'll be able to catch it. And thank you so much. Have a great day.